am so excited for today's guest because she has made a name for herself in the freelancing community. And I think that we're all going to be very interested in this topic since Google Gate happened. So I want you guys to welcome Sarah from On the Road with Sarah.
Hey, thanks for having me, Becca.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here because you had your own website. And let's talk just a little bit about how you went from your own site as your main thing. And you still have it and it's still there and you're still working it. But now a big chunk of what you do is freelancing and even beyond that now. So let's talk about how you got into that.
hmm Yes. So my journey through the blogging world and freelancing world has been not such a linear path. I did not major in journalism in college. Um, I do remember I was one of the weird kids that actually didn't mind writing term papers or researching history papers. I've just always been fascinated with other people's stories. So I don't know why I didn't go that way in college, but that's neither here nor there. I'm living proof that you do not have to, first of all, that you don't have to go to college to do what we're doing. But secondly, you really don't have to major in whatever you end up doing in life. Now, unless you're like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, you probably need some educational classes on those things. But everything I've learned, honestly, has just been trial and error. And that includes my foray into blogging. So, the short of that long part of my story is about 12 years ago now, when my girls were probably just over a year old, I kind of discovered blogs. I didn't really, they'd been around for a while. I mean, we have the movie Julie and Julia that was based on her name was Julie, her blog from like 1998 or something. Like I just didn't realize how long those had been around. So forever. But I had just recently discovered them in 2012. So I started reading people's insights into their parenting lives. And I thought, you know what? I have funny stories to share too. I want to write about my kids. I want to write about the funny things that happen um, as a new mom. You're learning as you go, and sometimes it's helpful to share that with other people so you don't feel like you're isolated in those early years of child rearing. But fast forward maybe 6 months later, I realized that like people are making money writing their blogs. It's no longer just your stories about your kids. Like people are actually partnering with companies. Like who knew? I had no idea this was a thing. That the sponsored post was a new revelation to me. And I thought, you know what? This is the best of both worlds. It would be really nice to make a little money, pay for, ballet lessons and extracurriculars, maybe put a little away for vacation, but also have the ability to go to my kids' school if they're having a Valentine's Day party or be home with them when they're sick. This is a great opportunity for me to be flexible. So I delved into that. But I made the mistake that a lot of bloggers do. I did not land on a particular topic. Instead, I tried to cover everything. I saw what other people were doing and thought, ooh, shiny object, I want that too. So I tried my hand at crafts. I tried my hand at food blogging. Much respect to those categories of folks who do that. Not my jam at all. Um, so I I did that for about 8 or 9 years, and I just was getting burnt out because I was doing things I didn't love. So I decided in the late winter, early spring of 2020, which we all know what happened in March of that year, to niche down to travel, because that was something I found that I loved and found that I was good at. And also people actually responded to that content that I created. And my husband was like, yeah, I really think you need to make your site obvious to Google, obvious to people who read it. People need to know what your site is. And my previous site was called Sarah in the Suburbs, which, okay, that's cute, but what does that mean? What is that about? that just seems like a mishmash of all the things. And it really was, because I was trying to copy other people instead of being true to myself. So then, the pandemic happened.
Hey,
Right
you
as
had
I
great
switched to,
timing on that, didn't
yeah,
you?
I mean, excellent timing. But hindsight is 2020. It really was excellent timing, because I knew things were probably not going to be great, because I was rebranding, renaming myself, getting rid of a lot of the extra weight, the junk content that was okay, but it wasn't serving any purpose for anybody. And so I knew that my traffic was going to take a hit anyway. But, I didn't realize it was going to take such a hit from the pandemic, because then no one was traveling and no one was even looking at travel content for 6 months. So as the world started to open back up, a year-ish later, I started seeing I started reading articles. I think I was clamoring to get back out there and travel. I wanted to do things, and get out of the house. I was ready to see how the world looked after the pandemic. So I started reading other people's articles on other websites, not just blogs. And I just started messaging the authors. I would find them on, I did some stalking. I would find them on Twitter, or LinkedIn, and I would just send them a message and say, "Hey, do you work for XYZ company, or did you just write this for them?" And they were like, most of them were, "Oh yeah, I'm a freelance writer." And I was like, "What does that mean?" So then they went down the rabbit hole with me of that. And I learned how to pitch. I learned who to contact. I learned a lot about how crafting a story for an online platform that is not your own it's not a blog. You have to write with a different tone when you're writing a freelance article. But anyway, so that's where I am now. I'm still working on bringing up On the Road with Sarah, but all of I don't want to say all of it, but a lot of the money that I make is my freelance job. So I put more time into that, because that's what pays the bills.
Yeah. What I love about freelancing is that this is a great way for those that maybe also don't have their own website, because there are we know a lot of things are social first now, right? Like social media first. But you have these influencers that they may want to write, but they don't want to do a whole blog. So I think it's a great way for them to kind of get their feet wet and decide if they want to start a blog, if they want to start something like that. And I mean, there are influencers out there that are mostly on Instagram, but then they freelance for a newspaper in the area or another outlet. And it's a great opportunity to earn some money so that you're not just spending all your money to be a content creator in
Yes, yes,
parks or
because
on
content
travel.
creators look like they have a glamorous life, and they probably do. They do probably get a lot of free things. I remember being sent things in the beginning of my blogging career, if you will, that, if you would, "We want to send you this packet of snacks for your kids if you'll post a cute picture." Okay, great. But, I needed to do things other than that were going to pay the bills, because snacks are great, but they don't pay a mortgage.
That's
So
exactly right.
yeah, so people think the influencer, content creator, whatever term you want to use, lifestyle is awesome. And it is. I don't want to poo-poo it, but it's not all that it's cracked up to be. You've got to have something other than that, especially because, and we've talked about this before at your retreats and really at other conferences that cater towards people like us that have our own websites. You don't own the social media platform that you are
That's right.
successful on. TikTok owns TikTok. Mark Zuckerberg owns Instagram. Elon Musk owns Twitter, X, whatever. They could at any moment pull the plug on those things and you'll be out of luck. You'd be out of a job. So you really need to diversify your income if you're currently just depending on social media for your business.
Definitely. So I thought today would be great for us to share tips for people that want to start freelancing. And you spoke at our 2023 event about your freelancing journey, about what we should do. And so I made a list of some of the things that stood out to me last year, and we're going to talk about them. So we're going to call this 5 tips to start your freelancing journey. And the first tip, and this was like a huge aha moment to everyone in the room, is that most of us, if we have our own website, we probably have an online portfolio already that we didn't even know about. So talk to us about that website and setting that up.
Yes. So I have no idea how it works, to be quite honest. It is a site that I guess maybe the best way to describe it is that it aggregates any content that has your name attached to it. It's not going to aggregate, it's not going to pull from social media. I assume because social media, there's so many facets of it. Things change. You may delete something. It definitely doesn't pull from like stories or shorts or any of that stuff. I've never seen it pull YouTube videos, anything like that. It's literally just articles, and you have to have your author name in the article. So when I write on my site, I don't really have anybody freelancing with me right now. So everything is written by me. And so it has my name on it so that it appears on this website. And anything else that I edit, which I'm currently the managing travel editor at Wealth of Geeks. So my name appears on a lot of stuff, and it has ended up on my profile because I'm in the editing capacity. But then I also have, other freelance opportunities and different things that I do that have my actual byline on it, which is what journalists call your author tag, I guess, author name. This site is called Muckrack, Muckrack. And I always want to say muckrake. I don't know
That's
why,
okay. I kept
but
wanting
it's
to say muck yuck.
yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
weird, I'm assuming that it has to do with like old terminology from the newspaper era, like, you know, you're mucking your stuff. I don't know. I don't really know. I feel like that's a very old like 1920s term for something. But whatever it is, it's called muckrack.com. And if you're a writer of any sort, excuse me, go there and just put your name in the search bar and see what comes up. And if you already have a profile, which most everyone who writes online does, you need to go and claim it. And you can start organizing it and making it look nice and using it to reach out to different uh, companies, different online platforms that are looking for freelancers. And it's a great way to have all of your content that you've created in one spot without having to make your own web page. Because I know a lot of freelancers who don't have a website depend on they put like link tree links in their Instagram profile and stuff like that, and then they make very basic WordPress pages where they just list everything that they've written, and that's just tedious and time consuming, and you have to update it. Muckrack automatically updates for you. And if you know you've published something and it doesn't show up on your profile, you can actually send them a message either in their little chat on the website or via email and say, hey, I have this story. Here's where it originally appeared. I'm not seeing it in my profile. And they'll add it. And they'll also take things away because apparently there is somebody out there, which I feel like my last name is pretty uncommon, but apparently someone else out there named Sarah Gilliland works in a medical field and has written a lot of medical journal entries. And so I had all this medical stuff kind of attached to me on my profile. And I was like, can you take that off, please? Because that's not me.
Well, that's great. They got it off there for you. And I played with it a little bit at the event. We were all like suddenly looking up. We're like, what? We have one? But I really need to get back into that.
It's
And
like
even if
Googling
you're not a
yourself. It's really
freelance,
fun.
yeah, even if you're not a freelancer, it's really great to have because you can also send that to other companies too and see like, hey, here's some of the stuff I've written. So one thing you also talked about is that in your journey getting started, you connected with other freelancers and outlets. You said you stalked them, but you did reach out to some of them and talk about how you approach that. Like, how do you break the ice? Like, they don't know who you are. How do you go, hey, I want to do what you do? I mean, maybe that's exactly what you said. I want to do what you do. So,
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I get that a lot of people come to me and say, oh, I want to do what you do. I want to travel for free. And I have to be like, wait a minute.
yeah.
It's not travel for free. Let me explain to you what I do. And then after I explain it, they're like, oh, I don't want to do what you do. I just want to go on vacation. I'm like, yeah, it's different. And it's really the same way with talking to other freelancers, especially folks who maybe like did go to school for journalism. You need to approach them differently and have a different mindset. Be respectful of the fact that they've worked hard to get where they are, and don't take anything for granted, and be willing to do your own research before you go to those people. So like I said at the beginning, I started reading articles on travel and leisure. I started reading articles on um, Afar and the Points Guy. And if I particularly liked something, or maybe I disagreed with it, I didn't tell them this, but like I would, look and see who the author was, see if they had an active social media account, and either, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, something, and then just pop into their DMs and be like, hey, I just read your article. And sometimes I would link it, or I would just say about such and such, and I really liked it. Or I'd love to. I have had this experience with it. I think that's cool that you had a different one. Um, is your editor looking for any other freelancers? You just ask. You don't beat around the bush. Don't waste people's time. You just need to ask. But definitely start out your ask by letting people know you've done your research, and not just, it's kind of like, it's the same way when you share that you've traveled somewhere, on someone else's dime, and you say not hosted, what's the, I guess, just ad or whatever, and people know that you've been paid to talk about something. um the DMs start coming. Hey, I want to do that too. I want to go here too. I want to be hosted. I want to be able to say hashtag ad when I stay at the Marriott. Well, you gotta talk to the people who are going to put you in the room with the other people who are going to get you to the Marriott. And the way to do that is to make sure that you show your work. You can actually, I've sent people, say, this is what I've written on my own website. I'm new to this. I'm starting out. I need a little help. Let me know who I can get in touch with. And people are very willing to share their contacts. And I find that is very different from the blogging world, that if you have a PR person or an industry contact, bloggers hold those very close to their chest, almost like buried treasure. Like they hide it away and lock the key and just act aloof. And like you can't just, Google down into a website and find the editor of Travel and Leisure. Like you can, but it's nice to know if you can maybe get a recommendation from somebody. So it's worth reaching out to other freelancers, because they're very willing to um, share contacts and share information, and also give you feedback. But definitely don't take advantage of them, just like bloggers or influencers. Like nobody wants to be taken advantage of for the skills that they've acquired over the years. So make sure that you can help them, or that you're sharing their content, or that you've done your research.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we talked about reaching out to other people. You mentioned a few outlets. So what outlets do you find have like are open to new freelancers in the travel outlet?
Well, I think uh, the travel landscape has changed dramatically in the last 6 months. I'm sure you're aware that lots of places have been laying off their staff. AI has kind of butted in and is attempting to replace people. And I don't know that AI will ever fully replace people, because it's pretty obvious right now when something is AI written, there's no
Yeah.
human touches at all. And also sometimes the AI, whatever kind of it you use, whether it's Chat GPT or something else, they use the same words over and over again, nestled in the hidden gem in the, like, it, not everything is nestled in or is a hidden gem. So it's very obvious when it's that. But I think one of the ways that you can stand out to these travel publications is to show that you are an expert on the topic. So when you pitch, that's really the best way to get your foot in the door. And don't be afraid of rejection. I think in the blogging world, rejection stings really bad, especially if you see a bunch of people going to a particular event or on a particular familiarization or fam trip, and you didn't get the invite. It hurts. But in the world of freelance journalism, it's just another day at the office. Like you just have to say, okay, well, that opportunity didn't work out. How am I going to make the next one work out for me? So Travel and Leisure, like I've said, has a page where you can find their editors. Condé Nast Traveler has a page. Afar has a page. TripAdvisor, um, Lonely Planet. And I actually was part of a webinar for travel writing with editors from the New York Times, the Washington Post, National Geographic, and I'm forgetting the last one. But anyways, but they all were very open to pitches. So you just have to know you have to know the website's audience. You have to know what you're an expert at. And you need to make sure that whatever you're thinking of pitching isn't something they've already covered. Because if they've already written a story about it, they're probably going to reject that pitch. And also you have to be comfortable with the fact that you may not hear anything back. After about 2 weeks, if you have not gotten a response from an editor, you probably need to move on to another publication because they're busy and have flooded inboxes that they can't get to everybody.
Yeah. Nothing personal. It doesn't mean they'll never pick
Mm-hmm.
you. It just means that
Mm-hmm.
article is not the right fit for them right then. I want to talk just a little bit more about the pitching because a lot of people, and this has come up the last 2 years at our conference, is that people are like, well, they asked me if I'll be able to publish on this place at like they've seen I've written on Travel and Leisure and they want me to promise publication there. And one thing we've talked about is you can never promise publication on one of these sites. But when is the best time to pitch that article? Do you do it before you travel, after the travel, and then you have your story basically, you know what you're going to say? What is your favorite time to pitch that?
So it really just depends on what the trip is. If it is a familiarization trip or a fam trip, as sometimes they're called, that means that it's probably journalists only or influencers only. Like it's not going to be, you're not going with your family, you're not taking your significant other. There's no other guest. It's literally just the writers. And those trips are usually highly curated because the destination or tour operator or whatever is trying to showcase or highlight a particular part of their destination or a particular event they've got going on. For instance, a lot of places are hyping up the solar eclipse that's coming up in April. Like those are pretty, I get emails every day about those. So I could pitch a story ahead of time to some publication about the solar eclipse because I'm getting so much information daily from different places that are in the path of total whatever path of totality, I think is what they're calling it. And like tips on how to avoid the crowds in these places, or maybe don't go all the way to the path of totality because it's going to be so crowded. Here's somewhere else you can go instead, because there's a lot of places that are trying to hype up their cities because they're like, you can still see it, we just won't be as crowded because it won't be completely dark, that sort of thing. So that's an instance where you could pitch before you go. I still would never, ever, ever, ever go to the destination tour operator and say, I am going to pitch XYZ and we'll get a story on there, because even if you do and the editor likes your idea before you go and it's exactly what you expect it to be. So you're going to write that story. So nothing's changed and you're like, yes, this is the story. The editor or the person above the editor could still, axe that story. And as a writer, you'll get a kill fee, but the destination or tour provider doesn't care that you got a kill fee. All they care about is the fact that your story never showed up on Travel and Leisure. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is I prefer, especially if it's a destination that I've never personally been to, you got to go there first. You got to experience it. And you have to, you and I both talk about our families a lot. We travel with our families. So our beats are family travel, theme parks, those sorts of things. Well, if I'm going on a familiarization trip and I don't get to bring my family, guess what kind of story I'm not writing? I'm not writing a family story. So I really need to go and see what sort of story comes to mind as I'm experiencing the destination, because now I'm thinking as someone who maybe would think like, oh, if I had, my husband here, this would be a great couples trip. Or if I was here with some girlfriends, this would be a great girlfriends angle or something like that. But then again, if I'm going on a trip with my kids in tow, that's a completely different story as well, and you still have to experience it. You can't just, I mean, I can say, okay, these are some challenges we usually face when we travel. I wonder how it'll be different or the same here. And so I can go ahead and go into the place with some ideas, but I won't pitch a story until I've come back after my experience, just because you never know when a story will hit you.
Yeah. I do think you pointed out how you can't really promise the other place and the fam trips. This is one case for having your own site, even if you aren't like trying to monetize it and stuff. Having your own site where you can write articles, one, it helps you build your profile, like, in your portfolio. But two, then you have somewhere you can say, I will at least publish something here. I will try to pitch it to other like outlets. Don't promise any certain outlets, don't name names, but you can say, I will try to pitch to outlets, but the only spot I can guarantee it is on this site. And so if you have that site, it's at least something you can promise as a deliverable, right? Plus your social and stuff. But I think it
Hmm.
makes the case for having your own site, even if it isn't making you tons of money.
Right, because at that point, it's not about you making money. It's about, and we talked a little bit about this at this year's retreat. Earned media, earned media is very different from paid media. So a lot of times, influencers and content creators who depend on social media for their living charge places to go to them and make a TikTok or make a reel or make a series of Instagram posts showcasing the beauty of wherever. Um, but if you have your own site, you just you have control over it. You have complete control over what goes there. You have complete control over what doesn't go there. And you just never know when something is going to track with people and, go crazy.
Okay, so you've mentioned already that you are now an editor as well. So you're on the other side. So I want you to share some tips on how to become an editor's favorite freelancer.
Oh, this is so easy, Becca. Like, you just would not believe the number of people who like just the very basics. Okay. So, a lot of places have like I said, have their list of who edits what on their site. And they also exactly tell you exactly how to pitch those people. Follow those instructions. Follow those instructions to the T, because, like I said, our inboxes are overflowing with either PR pitches or writer pitches. And if we've asked you to give us a title, give us a couple of 3 to 4 sentences about it, maybe link to some of your work, and just let it, know that we'll try to respond to you within a week, but also know that maybe we won't respond at all if we're not going to use it. Um, Nothing is more annoying than getting a follow up email less than 24 hours after you've opened your first one from that person. Even though it clearly says in the instructions, we need at least a week, and sometimes we may not respond. Like, read the instructions. Otherwise, you go to
Yeah.
delete and then you go to spam. So I don't ever have to see your emails again. You don't want that.
Now,
Really, it's
what-
so basic. Follow instructions.
the instructions. And then if they do want to follow up, because emails do get lost because your inboxes are so flooded, when do you think is a good time? And should they just follow up the one time and then be like, okay, yeah, it's not happening?
Yeah, I don't try to follow up more than once, because unless you've progressed, unless they've responded and you've progressed in the email relationship, and then all of a sudden it feels like they're ghosting you, then you can, hey, are you, because sometimes, you have a conversation and then people don't respond and you didn't realize that they were sick or they had to go out of the country or whatever. So that's okay if you need to follow up more than if, you're waiting on something and you're like, wait, where did you go? But if you don't get a response within a week, a week. So today we're recording this podcast on a Wednesday. If I was to send an email to you today, Becca, I would wait until next Wednesday around this time to say, hey, just wanted to see if you were interested in the pitch I sent you last week. And what I would do is I would start a brand new email, because if your first email didn't go or didn't get into their inbox, and it did go to spam or something, start a new thread, because nothing is worse than I get those repeat emails with the same subject line in them, and it just says, just bringing this to the top of your inbox. That is very annoying. Don't do that. Okay. Just start a new email. Hey, and copy and paste what you sent, last week, and then just end it with, just wanted to follow up one last time and see if you were interested in this story. Usually that one might get a response. 9 times out of 10, I feel like that gets oh, thanks for sending this again. We're not interested at this time, but I appreciate you. Feel free to pitch again in the future. Or you may not get a response, period. Like, it just may be crickets. And at that point, it's time to take the story to another place and see if they're interested in it. But I would definitely not follow up more than once, and not follow up earlier than a week. Please.
All right. Thank you so much for your tips. I end my podcast, because a lot of our audience are content creators in the theme park space. We always end with a rapid fire Disney Parks edition. And so,
oh my gosh, I hope
here
this
you
goes
go.
better than the trivia game.
Oh, it will. Sarah talked a big
Okay.
game at trivia, and it wasn't as she didn't do quite as well as she
It
thought.
wasn't
She
as
still
easy
won.
as I thought. We
She
did,
still
but
won,
like
though.
barely.
Okay. So, Disneyland or Disney World?
Oh, girl, Disneyland.
I'm so excited you
There's
said
no
that, 'cause
question.
you go to Walt
I
Disney World more because
know.
you're closer,
I
but
know.
that makes me
It's because it's
happy.
a proximity thing, but gosh, I do love Disneyland.
All right. Thunder Mountain or Space Mountain?
Can I get the Space Mountain in Disneyland?
Yes.
Okay, that one. Because I don't really like Big Thunder Mountain at all, but I also don't really like Space Mountain, but I like it all right in Disneyland.
Disneyland. All right. Churros or Dole Whips?
Churros only if they're from the West Coast. Dole Whips in Orlando. Can I do
All
that?
right.
Can I say both, but different coasts?
Yeah, you can, just because the
Okay,
churros are so different on the two
They
coasts.
are. They're so good.
Okay, then family trip or girls trip?
Oh, girls trip. Sorry, kids. Love you.
All right. That's great. Remind everyone before we go where they can find you on social.
Yeah, so I am pretty active on Instagram, and my TikTok is the same, although I feel like I'm too old to be over there, but it's at Sarah Gilliland Travels on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me by my name on Twitter at Sarah Gilliland, or X. I'm going to forever call it Twitter. I'm sorry. I don't care what they've changed the name to. It's Twitter. And I have a Facebook page for my website called On the Road with Sarah. That's where you can find me.
One webpage is On the Road with Sarah.
Oh,
Your
and my
website.
webpage, ontheroadwithsarah.com. You're right.
So we'll have all that link down below. And also we will have the link directly to Muck Rack for you to go and find out if you have an online portfolio you didn't know about. And we will see you all real soon. Keep influencing the magic.